Look at a chimpanzee. Look at a gorilla. Now look at a human. Out of hundreds of primate species on Earth, we are the only ones completely stripped of a protective coat of fur. Biologically speaking, our bare skin is an evolutionary anomaly. But here is the truly shocking paradox. Despite losing our dense body hair over 1 million years ago, human beings host 3 completely distinct, highly specialized species of parasitic lice. And modern DNA sequencing has revealed an unsettling truth. While our head lice evolved alongside us, one of our specific parasites did not. It jumped to our ancestors directly from gorillas over 3 million years ago. Today, we are looking at the hard science of human evolution. We are going to examine exactly why your ancestors shed their fur, how that single biological glitch transformed humans into apex predators, and how microscopic parasites hold the exact timeline of when humanity first started wearing clothes. To understand exactly why we look the way we do, we have to look at the climate data of the Pliocene and early Pleistocene epochs. For millions of years, our earliest hominin ancestors, like Australopithecus, lived in and around the dense, lush canopy of African forests. During this period, they were covered in a thick coat of fur. In a forest environment, fur is an absolute biological necessity. It acts as a physical armor against abrasive branches, shields the skin from disease-carrying insects, and most importantly, regulates body temperature in the cool, shaded undergrowth. The forest canopy acted as a giant thermal shield, protecting early primates from the direct radiation of the sun. But roughly 2.5 to 3 million years ago, the Earth's climate went through a massive, violent shift. The continent of Africa dried out. The protective forests rapidly shrank, giving way to the open, relentless environment of the savanna. Our ancestors were forced out of the shade. To forage, scavenge, and survive, they had to walk upright into the direct, blazing sunlight. This created a severe, life-threatening thermodynamic crisis. The physics of heat buildup in a furry animal on the open savanna is brutal. Fur is an insulator. It is designed to trap heat close to the body. When you combine the internal heat generated by walking or running with the external solar radiation pounding down from the sun, the core temperature of a furry hominin would skyrocket within minutes. And humans have one specific organ that makes this incredibly dangerous: our growing brains. The brain is an energy-hungry supercomputer that generates a massive amount of its own heat, and it is incredibly sensitive to hyperthermia. An increase of just a few degrees in core temperature causes proteins in the brain to literally begin denaturing. It leads to confusion, heat stroke, brain damage, and rapid death. Most savanna predators, like lions, leopards, or cheetahs, manage this thermal trap by simply doing nothing. They rest in the shade during the hottest parts of the day and hunt only at dawn or dusk. If a cheetah sprints and fails to catch its prey within 60 seconds, it must abandon the hunt and pant furiously to dump excess heat from its respiratory tract. Panting is effective, but it requires the animal to stop moving entirely. But early members of the genus Homo weren't fast enough to be ambush predators, and they couldn't afford to sleep all day. They needed to travel long distances in the dead heat of the afternoon to scavenge carcasses before the hyenas got to them. Panting wasn't going to be enough. Evolution had to completely re-engineer our cooling system. The ultimate evolutionary solution was evaporative cooling. Now, most mammals actually can sweat, but they rely on apocrine sweat glands. These glands are attached to hair follicles and secrete a thick, oily, protein-rich fluid. If you've ever seen a horse run, you'll notice it gets covered in a thick, white, soapy lather. That is apocrine sweat. It works, but it is highly inefficient and creates a messy, sticky coat that limits heat loss. Humans, however, went down a completely different evolutionary path. We evolved a massive concentration of a different type of cooling unit: eccrine sweat glands. You have between 2 to 4 million eccrine glands distributed across your entire body. Unlike apocrine glands, eccrine glands produce a watery, salty sweat that sits directly on the surface of the skin. This takes advantage of a physics principle called the latent heat of vaporization. When that thin layer of water turns into a gas and evaporates, It pulls massive amounts of thermal energy directly out of your bloodstream, cooling your entire core instantly. But there is a massive mechanical limitation to this system. Eccrine sweating is practically useless if you are covered in a thick coat of fur. The hair traps the moisture, preventing the air from reaching it. Instead of evaporating, the sweat just turns the fur into a heavy, wet, suffocating blanket that actually traps the heat inside. To unlock the full, devastating potential of our eccrine glands, we had to shed our fur. We traded physical armor for an advanced liquid cooling system, genetic evidence, specifically tracing the evolution of the MC1R gene, which simultaneously darkened our skin to protect our newly naked bodies from lethal UV radiation, suggests this major biological shift occurred roughly 1.2 million years ago in species like Homo ergaster. By trading fur for bare skin and millions of water-pumping glands, our ancestors became the most terrifying endurance predators on the planet. This led to a hunting strategy known as persistence hunting. While a gazelle could easily outsprint a human, it cannot outcool a human. In the absolute hottest part of the day, when every other predator is hiding in the shade, early humans would target a fast, fur-covered animal and simply jog after it. The hunt is a thermodynamic horror story for the prey. The animal sprints away, its core temperature spiking. It finds shade and stops to pant, desperately trying to cool its boiling brain. But before it can recover, the humans appear on the horizon. The animal is forced to sprint again. This cycle repeats for miles. Hours pass. The humans don't sprint. They just maintain a steady, relentless pace, their bare skin glistening with sweat, their core temperature perfectly stabilized by the breeze. Eventually, the prey's biology simply fails. It cannot pant fast enough to dump the heat. The animal collapses, paralyzed by hyperthermia. We didn't need sharp claws to kill them. We simply weaponized our naked skin to outcool them until they dropped. Losing our fur was the ultimate evolutionary cheat code. But the biological record shows that while we lost the hair, we couldn't shake the hitchhikers. This brings us to the parasite paradox. The human body is a distinct ecosystem, and it hosts 3 separate species of lice. By sequencing the DNA of these parasites, evolutionary biologists at the Florida Museum of Natural History uncovered a timeline of human history that the fossil record couldn't show. Let's start with the head louse, Pediculus humanus capitis. Genetic analysis reveals that human head lice and chimpanzee lice share a common ancestor. They diverged into 2 separate species approximately 6 million years ago. This aligns perfectly with the fossil and genetic data indicating when the human lineage split from the chimpanzee lineage. As our ancestors evolved, our head lice simply evolved alongside us, clinging to the remaining hair on our scalps. But the origin of the human pubic louse, P. pubis, completely baffled scientists. When geneticists sequenced the pubic louse, they realized it did not evolve from the chimpanzee lineage. Its closest genetic relative is the louse found on gorillas. The molecular clock indicates that this specific parasite diverged from the gorilla, louse, and jumped to early hominins about 3.3 million years ago. How did an early human ancestor contract a gorilla parasite? The scientific consensus points to shared environments and scavenging. Around 3.3 million years ago, hominins like Australopithecus afarensis lived in regions where their territories overlapped with ancient gorillas. Because early humans were scavengers, they likely interacted with gorillas by utilizing their abandoned sleeping nests or butchering their remains for protein. Since lice require physical contact to transfer, and pubic lice specifically require coarse hair widely spaced apart to grasp onto, the parasite found a viable new host in the specific anatomical regions of early humans. We have carried this microscopic record of a 3-million-year-old interspecies interaction ever since. But the most fascinating piece of biological data comes from the third parasite, the human body louse, Pediculus humanus. While shedding our fur allowed us to conquer the African heat, it became a massive liability when humans began migrating into colder climates and facing the Pleistocene ice ages. We had to find a way to insulate our bare skin. We had to invent clothing. For a long time, anthropologists struggled to pinpoint exactly when humans started wearing clothes. Animal hides and plant fibers degrade quickly, leaving almost no trace in the archaeological record. The oldest surviving sewing needles only date back about 40,000 to 60,000 years. But the body louse provided the definitive answer. Unlike head or pubic lice, the body louse does not live on the human body. It is biologically adapted to live, breed, and lay its eggs exclusively in clothing fibers. It only moves to the bare skin momentarily to feed. Therefore, the body louse could not possibly exist as a species until humans started wearing clothes on a permanent basis. By sequencing the genome of both the head louse and the body louse, scientists measured the number of genetic differences between them. Using a reliable mutation rate known as a molecular clock, they calculated exactly when the body louse branched off from the head louse to become its own unique species. The date? Approximately 170,000 years ago. This date is incredibly significant. 107,000 years ago coincides exactly with the second-to-last major ice age. The climate data confirms that the Earth experienced a severe drop in temperatures during this exact period. To survive the lethal cold, early Homo sapiens began systematically wrapping themselves in the furs and skins of the animals they hunted. When they did this, they unknowingly created a brand new, warm, and protected ecological niche, clothing. Some adventurous head lice migrated down into these new artificial furs, adapted to the fibers, and speciated into the body louse. The history of human evolution isn't just written in the fossilized bones we dig out of the ground. It is written in our biology, and in the biology of the organisms that evolved alongside us. We shed our fur to build a superior thermodynamic cooling system, allowing us to conquer the heat of the savanna. We interacted closely enough with other primates to absorb their parasites into our own ecosystem. And when the planet froze, our intellect allowed us to replace the fur we lost with the skins of other animals, a behavioral leap perfectly recorded in the DNA of a microscopic bug. The human body is a map of our prehistoric survival. You just have to know exactly where to look.